What's up guys, this is Maverick here, you're watching the Music of Maverick channel, and today we are going to be watching Monster Musume no Oishasan episode 1. Starting a new series here. The title translates to basically the doctor for monster girls, or monster girl doctor, so it doesn't have an official English translation, so this is what I'm going to go with. Anyways, I'm sure that there's some new friends here as well, and just to give a brief intro to my channel, typically all my videos I divide them into 3 separate parts. I'll have an introduction or a recap at the beginning, I'll have my blind reactions in the middle part, and then at the very end I'll have what I call my musings section, where I do some discussion parts, talk about things I liked, I didn't like from this particular episode, and in the cases where there are more things to expand on, I like to do a deeper dive, a deeper analysis into some of the subjects or topics that are touched upon within the anime. I like to discuss things a little bit more, if you will. They'll all be timestamped below, so don't worry, you can just check out whichever part you want, although I do pride myself to maybe caring a bit more in terms of the discussion. But anyways, as I said at the beginning, I will have an introduction, so let's talk about this work for a little bit, right? It's not exactly a popular work, and to be honest, the only reason why I'm watching this in the first place is because one of my favorite voice actresses, Onisha, is actually the female lead for this one, so I figured I would give it a shot here. Otherwise, it's being made by a studio that doesn't really have that many good works under it. I believe the studio is Arvo Animation, and they basically made We Can't Study, or We Never Learn, right? Which is okay, I guess. And then the director is Iwasaki-san, who is... I don't really have much to say about him, except that he has quite the experience dealing with harem works. But at the very least, going for it is the sound director, which is Jin-san, who is quite the legendary sound producer, if I say so myself. But beyond that, I mean, we probably all saw the promotional videos and whatnot, and it's, yeah, there is going to be a ton of innuendo, a ton of very suggestive stuff in there, a ton of ecchi, basically, which is kind of surprising to me in a sense, because originally when I learned about this work, you know, I read some reviews about the original light novel and whatnot, and apparently it goes quite in depth about the sort of medical properties, or the sort of medical terminology that is being used. It is, after all, a show centered on a doctor as a main character, caring for the various monster girls, right? Although, with the way that the PV is going, I think most people are already memeing this to be the next anime stylized after a certain reviewer anime, let's just say. But yeah, this is the advanced, this is sort of the advanced stream right now, which is up on Crunchyroll, and I think it was up on YouTube and whatnot as well. So I figured, well, let's just give it a shot right now and see what we're getting ourselves into. Alright, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Ah, see, this voice is Onishi's voice. Hmm? Yeah. Hi, Flower. And already, just for... Okay, I see. Right off the bat, we are... Okay. Mm-hmm. I love how she's a cow as well. So, are you gonna have to milk those, Dr. San? Oh, Isha-san. Yep, got disinfected. Okay. Ah, there's the female lead. Safenti. Len. Ventara. I mean, after all, he is a doctor, right? Can't think of all the other things. No perverted thoughts. Safi. Are you a dog? Safi, eh? Alright. Kafuli? Katu? Octopus, eh? Harpies. If anything else, this series would be a good chance to get up to date with all the various monsters and whatnot. Of course, it's always gotta be female. This is Monster Musume, after all. Ah. Saliaskit. I believe she's also an important character because we see her on the visuals. You would think that coat of arms looks more suitable for like knights or something.
ますから無理のないように。よかった。ありがとうございます。こちらへどうぞ。次は私ですわ。
Wow. That is quite overbearing.
私のような人馬はお好みかしら。あ、ごめんなさい。私はスキュテイヤ運送の跡取り。伊沢リンドブルムのケンタウロスを率いて商会の未来を担うものですわ。そうなるとまず結婚、そして子供を作ることが求められます。パートナーとして優秀な人材が欲しいのですわ。けれど何度お見合いをしてもどの殿方もしっくりきませんの。武勇を誇るスキュテイヤーですが、屈強な殿方は
You probably shouldn't talk so much while the doctor is doing his examination.
若くして魔族の診療をしているようなとても利発な殿方などか。失礼します。あら、ティサリアさん、胴回りの数字が先月よりもかなり増えてますね。あなた突然何ですの？蛇の尻尾で測らないでくださる？というか、測るのはこっち。もう看護師なのにそんなことも知りませんの？看護師ではなくクス師です。どうでもいいですわ。ほら、ご覧なさい、蛇女。私のこの美麗なウエストを。言っておきますが、グレン先生はまだまだ医師として半人前。お見合いの話など30年早いのです。何をおっしゃいますの？結婚と馬は早いほどいいのですわ。あら、やっぱりそうなんですよ。ティサリアスキュテイヤー異常なしと。
Okay. Obviously, there's a little bit more through the story here.
気があるうちに住んでよかった。ティサリアさんの仕切りのおかげだよ。帰る前に一言挨拶しておきたいんだけど。いないものは仕方がありません。誰かにことづてを頼めばよろしいのでは？まあそうだけどさ。お医者様、少しよろしいでしょうか。あなた方はティサリアさんの。はい、お月のケイト、ローナと申します。
Are all centaurs so well endowed?
お嬢様の診断はいかがでしたか？何か病気
Yeah, obviously, I can see I can't become a doctor. I'd be too distracted.
いえ、ティサリアスキュテイヤーさんは至って健康です。普段からよく運動し、節制した生活をなさっているからかと思います。病気を伺わせるようなことは何もないですよ。そうですか。何か心配事でも？ヘイさん、ローナさん、お二人にとってティサリアさんは大事な人ですよね。はい、それはもちろん。では、何でも話してください。その上で改めて医者である僕が病気ではないとお伝えできれば、きっと安心できると思います。
So in the flashback photo, we see that both of them graduated together, right? So I guess they are both doctors. Except she's... Yeah, Safi's probably wanting to be his assistant. Because she obviously likes him.
君には子供の頃から同じことを言われてる気がするよ。
Oh, okay. Osanamiji?
私はグレン先生の幼馴染であり、アカデミーでの姉弟子なのですから。
Oh, really?
お見通しってわけだね。闘技場でのことを考えてらしたのでしょ？うん。実はお嬢様がここしばらく試合に勝てずにいるのです。闘技場での試合にですか？はい。これまで第3回でも上位の成績を誇っていらしたのですが、最近勝率が目に見えて落ち込んで、何が悪いのかもわからないのです。お嬢様は
I mean, it could be psychological as well.
自分からは決して口にすることはない。幸不調は誰にでもあるものです。病が原因とは限りません。それならそれでいいんだ。そうじゃないのが怖いんだ。何か一杯お飲みになりませんか、先生。お酒を？ええ、すぐ用意いたします。キサリアさんに病気を示す兆候は見られない。過去のクトリフ先生の診断でもそれは同じだ。だけど、あるいは医者が見逃すような別の要因が不調の理由なのか。カルテに書かれていないような、書くほどでもない何かが。
Hmm.
お待たせしました。サーフェ、氷使ったの？解熱用のやつだよね、これ。少しだけです。それになくなればビブル山脈から取れますから。山頂まで往復2日かかるよ。あまり目くじら立てないでください。弱いお酒ですし、ハーブの薬効と氷の冷たさできっとすっきりされますよ。召し上がれ。美味しいよ。ありがとう。で、何飲んでるの、サーフェ。お酒臭い。それまさか顆粒酒？ええ、健康診断のお礼にっていただいたんです。ケイさんとローナさんから。いつの間に。
Can you hold your liquor?
それより、ティサリアさんの不調の原因、分かったんですか？はっきりしたことは言えないけど、僕は。
I mean, if you guys still gotta open tomorrow, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't be drinking.
病気じゃなくても医者の出番はある。明日ちょっと行きたいところがあるんだ。なんならそのまま闘技場に行ってティサリアさんに会いたい。サーフェンティット、付き合ってくれる？他の女のところに行くのに私を伴うなんて何を考えているのですか？そういう話じゃないよ。行かせません。先生がまたあの女に見合いを申し込まれたら大変です。
Like the jealous girl, this one.
サーフェンティット、もう分かった。あのジンバ姫に色目を使われていい気になったのでしょ。節操がないですね、先生。私はクトリフ様にグレンに手を出したら承知しないなんて言われてるのに。あのさ、今日はちょっときつく。これ以上のライバル出現なんて許しません。許せません。あくまで治療に行くだけだから。治療に行きません。あのね、サーフェ。はい、先生。欲しいんだ。
That's hot. Just call her by Sape. And A-okay. You're gonna get a hangover tomorrow, aren't you? Oh. Stomach, eh? うん。
スキュテイヤーの栄光を名誉を後世に残すため闘士になったはずなのに、体に異常はないのに何かがおかしい。どうして？もっと訓練をしないと。
So I guess they are still archetypical knights. I mean, it would make sense, of course. Being centaurs. You know, the funny thing about this, though, even though it's quite the cliche to to use the sort of jostling lances for a centaur, and it makes sense, right? They're half horse, so it's just like a knight. But in reality, though, it's not quite the same, and in fact, it's not really good for them to do this. Based though. Oh. He's afraid, so that's why she doesn't do it. That's certainly an obvious sight. Wait, you're a fighter in a coliseum and you can't handle this? You get beat up even more, right? Okay, that is like very dangerous, dude. I'm not quite sure if this is actually a job for a doctor. Of course, they gotta make it erotic as well. Cyclops, eh? Ooh. Why is the doctor the one to do this? Okay, so that's the context of this. I guess that... You know what? That actually makes a lot of sense. I was wondering in the promotional video, like, what was the need for something like that? But it actually makes a lot of sense, I gotta say. Anyways, as I was saying before, a lance charge doesn't actually work for centaurs. Because on impact, you actually need something to... it can't be solid. When a knight does it, because the knight can also pull back the arm and swivel their body, it's not an entire impact. You know, you're not putting the full force of the horse there. I mean, I guess that's getting a little bit too technical. But this would honestly be similar to, like, if you were extending your hand out like Superman and running into a wall. It's like that. Ah. I mean, she certainly does look cute. Right, a mermaid? Alright. See you guys after this. Alrighty, so that was the first episode of Monster Musume no Oishasan. So, pretty much went as expected with the ecchi parts and whatnot, although it was actually much more tame than I was expecting, beyond the very inappropriate moans at most inappropriate times, right? Seriously, I think there's no reason for this to be erotic, except for the fact that they are, you know, that they make all these moaning noises, right? Otherwise, it's quite, he's a doctor. He's got to treat his patients. What else can you say? And even, like, for instance, the princess, right? She was basically only having her hooves treated. Was it really necessary to moan there? I mean, come on. And then, of course, the strangling by Safi there, wrapping her up and then putting her tail in her mouth. Well, that was. I mean, it worked, right? She was being very loud and noisy, and you know, it shut her up. So, what can I say? But anyways, the two main characters, Glenn, Safi, they're pretty likable right now for this first episode. Particularly Safi. I mean, I guess I am a little bit biased, but I do really like her character design very much. And then the voice of Onisha just fits her so well that yeah, that's all I can say right now. She's, at least for me, she carried this first episode. In terms of, I see a lot of people discussing things like the animation quality and all that. I mean, sure, it could be better, but I think it's still pretty serviceable for what it is. At least because the character designs are all very nice looking. I don't think that, especially in this case, for this kind of anime, you really need any kind of top tier animation, right? It's serviceable. It passes the mark. The one thing I will say that I was a little bit disappointed by, however, is how quickly Glenn arrived at the solution, and basically we weren't shown anything in regards to the, you know, within the story itself that hinted at her situation, right? Like, how did Glenn figure out that it was her hooves all along, and that was how he knew what to fix, right? I wish that we could have, you know, this is, as far as I expected, this is a much more you know, a much more medical related show than the initial impressions might give off, and so it's actually going to go quite in depth into solving a lot of the various monsters' problems and all that. However, in this episode, he basically just arrived at the conclusion without us really seeing how. I would have loved it if they actually went and checked out her while she was fighting and whatnot. Maybe show her gaits being a little bit weird, a little bit off, or something like that, and for that to hint at what was actually troubling her, and then arrive at that entire conclusion. And you can still keep all the ecchi stuff, all the comedy and whatnot in there, right? You don't have to sacrifice that, but you can actually show the proper steps as well to allow us to work things out. And then, you know, that would kind of be interesting, right? It's sort of like watching medical shows, you know, medical shows on TV as well. That's how you typically go into them, right? You need to have well, I can't say every single medical show is like that, but for a lot of the more popular shows, like for instance, like Dr. House or something like that, it's always a sort of like a mystery solving, right? You're looking at the various symptoms and then you're trying to figure out what exactly is bothering the patient. So I thought that they would go somewhere like that here. Otherwise, it might be more drama related, like life and death kind of situations, and you gotta those kind of stuff. But mostly it's a because just like real life, medical work is really just looking at the symptoms and then trying to solve it out, right? It's sort of like a puzzle to that extent. So I wish that we could have had a bit more of that in here. Now, is it going to turn itself into just purely a gag show and all that, and relying on the etchiness and the lewdness and so on and so forth? I certainly hope not. I mean, I wouldn't want them to take it out if that is part of the appeal of the series, but I would like them to emphasize on the medical stuff a little bit more here, right? What else for this episode? Oh, and I guess I should mention that Safi and Glenn. So we know that they're childhood friends and all that. So they've known each other since they were little, and apparently they went to the same school, the same medical school, and graduated together. And I guess Safi should have originally graduated first, since she said she was the senior. But apparently they graduated at the same time, and now she's working as an assistant to Glenn, which is kind of weird because according to her, she is also a fully fledged doctor. She completed medical school after all. So there's probably some backstory there that we can get into later on. But certainly that is kind of interesting. I thought she was a nurse at first as well, but no, she's a doctor. So she should actually also be called doctor. Because, well, does that situation happen in real life where a doctor is an assistant to another doctor? I mean, sure, you could have like medical interns, and then you have like resident doctors and doctors that are currently competing residency and so on and so forth. But those are still called doctors, right? So shouldn't they also call her like Dr. Cephetite or something like that? I don't know. I mean, that's maybe more story to come in the future, right? But anyways, as far as we can see right now, it seems that it's going to go with a very episodic format. So in this episode, we have a centaur, and the next episode, apparently, we're going to have a mermaid, and then we're going to have to solve her problem, right? And we already saw from promotional videos, like, obviously, how exactly Glenn is going to examine her and all that, so we can have that to look forward to. But I do hope that they show a little bit more in terms of the symptoms and whatnot, and how Glenn actually arrives at the proper solution to the situation. I'm looking forward to that. What else to talk about? I mean, even though I do like to do these kind of discussion sessions for this initial episode, I guess there's not really that much to talk about. I did, just a little bit of trivia in regards to the centaurs and whatnot. Jostling. Once again, I mean, sure, they're only going for this aesthetic, right? It's not meant to be like historically accurate or whatnot. But I'm just saying, though, if I really had a chance to meet a centaur girl, or I was in a place with centaur girls and whatnot, I definitely wouldn't want them to be using their bodies and for them to hold out a lance and charge like that, especially not at each other. That's not going to be good for their body as a whole. But yep. Anyways, that's it for this episode. Apparently the next one is, this is the advanced episode. It's supposed to start on the 12th, so I'm not quite sure if on the 12th we're going to get the true episode 1, and then we're going to have to wait until the 19th, or is it the case where the 12th we are going to get episode 2? I think it might be the former, actually. We might have to wait until the 19th for episode 2. So, I guess we just gotta wait. Anyways, that's it for this first episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time as well. Adios.